Thanks for tuning into the Market Wrap. I'm Neeraj Shah with Nikki Mirchandani. But before we talk, the two of us talk about the markets today. The magical figure was 50,000. And I think at this momentous journey for the Sensex at 50,000, let's get a market veteran, somebody who's been in the BSE building since ages. And yes, this chart may show that the index came off a little bit. So today, too, the market was not without its fair share of jitters, small jitters at that, because we ended flat. But we scaled Mount 50,000. And as I said on this momentous occasion, let's welcome in Mr. Kishanbhai Choksey. He's, well, amongst the biggest veterans that this market has seen. Mr. Choksey, good having you. Thanks for joining in. Really appreciate your time. How do you feel, sir, as we hit 50,000? It's a momentous occasion for all of us, but you've seen this whole journey. How do you feel about it?
Basically, it is exciting as well as it is desired because the Indian economy is improving. After the Modi came into power, he has done a lot of things that helps the economy, and he has introduced number of things that is helping the companies and the corporates to do well. Basically, if we take individually the investor, uh, this thing, companies and the industry, I think the uh, IT industry is doing very well, and IT industry has helped the economy this time. Because of the COVID, people felt that it is necessary to understand the information technology, and that is increasing the efficiency also, and that is getting connected to the people.
Yes, yes. Mr. Choksey, you would have seen the index at much lower levels. I was seeing in 1990 the index was 750. It is now at 50,000. The stocks like MRF would be very cheap. MRF is 90,000. Infosys, it would have been very cheap. It is at the levels that it is. How do you feel when you see these prices? And what would your advice be to people who might be getting scared right now, thinking that, oh, Sensex 50,000 ho gaya ya Sensex 50,000 થઈ ગયો છે, ચલો વેચી નાખીએ. What is your advice to such people?
Basically, I think individually, say MRF in a tire in an automobile industry, tire is required, and MRF has consistently done well. Year after year, if you see the performance of the company, it is better. And so, among the quality also of the tires, MRF is today number one, in spite of the international companies coming into India.
Yes. So, so what would your advice be to people who think that if Sensex is so expensive, if Sensex is at 50,000, let's book profits? What would you tell them?
I don't think that one should do profit at this point of time because individually, if you look at the companies, say, as I said, IT industry is doing very well and is likely to grow in time to come. Similarly, automobile industry is doing very well. Sugar industry, because of the ethanol policy of the government, is doing well, and so if the because of the agricultural production and the industry easy money, the market is likely to remain buoyant.
Okay. Nikki, do you have questions for Mr. Choksey?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Choksey, good afternoon there. My question to you is, it's taken almost 10 months for the markets to give 100% returns. You think next 10 months we would see similar sort of gains coming in for the market?
Basically, individually, things are looking good for the industry because some of the industries that is in the country, they are doing very well. So individually, when you are looking to investment, you have to look to the economy as well as the industry. If the industry is doing well, and out of that you have to consider a company with a good management and good growth. So you have to be very selective in buying the stock. One has to look to the management first because good in the same industry, one company is doing well and other company is not doing well. So management plays a very important part. And say today IT industry, as I have said, IT industry is doing well, automobile is doing very well, color industry, paint industry is doing very well. So some of the industries, they are doing very well at this point of time, and they have got all possibility of growing because of the PLI scheme. Also, there is a the industry is encouraged to grow and do the better things.
Mr. Choksey,
Okay.
any specific names that you'd like to point out in the IT auto industry? Just trying my luck out there.
IT industry, I think the front companies like Infosys, TCS, uh, they are doing well. Wipro has recently started doing well with the change in the management. So individually, companies are doing well. These front
Hmm.
companies, they are doing very well, and the demand for information technology is increasing. Today, at this point of time, our banks are not in adopted technology. So there is a possibility that banks will go for technology and there will be a good amount of work for the companies to upgrade them.
Right. Okay. Mr. Choksey, one final question before we thank you. You've given us some ideas already. Can you give us one, can you give our viewers one idea with Sensex at 50,000? What is your top investment call? In the past, you've told us so many times about some multi-bagger ideas. There was Maruti, there was Asian Paints. In the mid-cap side, there was Deepak Nitrite. You've given some fantastic ideas during Diwali sessions. Can you leave us with one idea?
Today, Deepak Nitrate is doing very well. It will continue to do well. In technology, I feel at this point of time, Infosys is heading for a good time. And with the change in the management, uh, Wipro will do well because they appointed the international manager and the things are looking up for the company and it will do very well. Both these companies in information technology will be winners.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you so much. It was lovely having you on this momentous occasion. Please stay safe and stay well.
Thank you.
Well, viewers, that was a special conversation with Mr. Kishan Choksey. As you all know, he's a market veteran, and it was nice of him to come and talk about this uptick. Just before we went on air, he was speaking about how he's seen the Sensex at much lower levels. He's seen MRF at some 60 rupees or thereabouts. And this is quite stunning how these things turn out. But anyways, quickly, very quickly, just laying out how the markets played out today as well. We've given you information, rather the opinion. Now let's very quickly give you information. Just pull up the Nifty MRR function once and just show you what moved today and what not before I hand it over to Nikki. But just look at the Nifty 50 today, and you will see that while there were a bit of jitter here and there, and commodities came off in the session today, Reliance managed to hold on the index higher, and as a result of which we ended flattish to maybe marginally lower. Had it not been for the big boy Reliance Industries being up 2%, we might actually have been fairly low. Yes, Tata Motors and Bajaj Finance were up, but they are not really those heavyweights. So autos have been doing well consistently. Asian Paints did very well because of their volume growth, but came off. But it was essentially Reliance which held the index higher. Otherwise, a lot of other commodity names and banking names had come off in the session, including the likes of Tata Steel, ONGC, Coal India, GAIL, etc. So that part of the market looked slightly wobbly. Nikki, very quickly, stock of the day, broaden up the spectrum, what stocks stood out?
Broadly and sure, Havells India, because that's good set of numbers reported by the company. As we all know, that the revenue was up by 39%, net profitability jumped by 75%, and EBITDA was up by as much as 89% year-on-year basis. Of course, it surpassed the analyst estimate. The number came at 500 crore as compared to 386 crore that the street was working with. So clearly, some amount of strong set of numbers coming in from Havells. And apart from that, if you look at the revenue growth, that's the strongest growth that we have registered since FY 2010. Of course, the gross margins to an extent were impacted, but that's on account of the delay in passing the rising cost of raw material. Apart from that, if you look at the working capital at this point of time, it remains pretty much under control, and the divisions continue to contribute significantly. What also did well in trade today, Neeraj, again, it was a good session coming in for tire stocks. JK Tire, CIAT, and Apollo. Of course, CIAT came up with good set of numbers, and there was an upgrade which came in from IFL Securities to buy from AD. There is a revision when it comes to price target, and they all expect at this point of time. Most of the brokerages rather expect CIAT to outperform the industry in FY21. And of course, Michelin, that's a French, a multinational tire manufacturing company, would said that they would not be able to supply passenger car tires until further update. That's on account of the recent development which has come in, which regards to the recent import restriction on tires in India. So you might just see more traction building in for tire stock, and the last two sessions probably just signifies that particular development. It just tells us that how this particular trade restriction is now moving in the favor of tire stocks. Apart from that, GMM Fordler, which is disappointing set of numbers came in from the company despite the growth seem to be modest. If you look at the face, so on the face of it, the revenues were up by 29%, EBITDA was up by 38%, margins expanded pretty much were stable around 21% as compared to 19% earlier. But then Street obviously was estimating more coming in from GMM Fordler, on account of which you saw some amount of decline coming in for that counter. But then, Neeraj, I'm going to hand it back to you and ask you about the globe and probably things that you're keeping an eye out on.
March, we're voting for Reliance tomorrow. So those results would be important, extremely important from a market parlance. We need Reliance to do well. Let's wait and watch how it does. But the world markets seem okay. Joe Biden is very, very active. The interesting thing, Nikki, would be how are the European markets shaping up? I want to take us to that. They look okay.
Yeah, I mean, at this point of time, European markets, they're trading mixed, and US stock futures are also indicating to a positive start. There is a bit of cautious optimism ahead of ECB meeting, but then, Joe Biden's inaugural speech, which has went in pretty much smooth, that's probably doing well with the street sentiment as a whole, which is definitely positive at this point of time, and hope that the numbers just go on expanding. But with this, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching.